All right, good afternoon, traders. Hey, Robert, can you hear the sound now? Can you guys hear me? Yeah, okay, all right. All right, good afternoon, traders. Today is April 24th, 2026. My name is Coach Carignan, lead instructor here at the BYOB Trading Room. Thank you for being here. Let's take a look at the markets, see what we wound up with for today. See what the guidance gave us, see if we're able to extract some profits. All right, so let's take a peek at the market today. Start off with SPY on the 10-minute. Let's look at the guidance that we were looking for this morning. Okay, so I'm pretty sure it was this one right here. Okay, so it was, I plan to trade a 10-minute uptrend, okay, over 710.50. All right, and I plan to trade a downtrend, a 10-minute downtrend below 707. All right, so let's go look at the pre-market. We had like this exhaustion move right here. Now, I wasn't sure if it was going to break down or break up, but the slope of the price action right up until the first candle was to the upside. It went from here right on up to there. So the slope was up, but you can see we had in the pre-market almost like 10-minute downtrend kind of shaping up right here. So I didn't know quite what was going to happen, but I knew that 710.30, all right, was 710.50 was where I wanted to be bullish if we could get price over 710.30 or 710.50. All right, so you can see we started a little 10-minute uptrend. There's the picture of easy money right there. You see the 8 EMA, which is the white line, start to separate from the VWAP line, and then you've got this bank or battery of tail candles down here. Tail, like lots of tails down here, kind of showing you buyers were definitely buying whatever they were selling. All right, so that right there was another clue. This morning we had price action moving up. That was another clue to get bullish. So I was looking for the bullish 10-minute uptrend, and of course we got this bank of tails down here. And then we finally, it wasn't until, I don't know, 10:40, 11 o'clock that we finally took off with the 10-minute uptrend. Of course, now you can see the picture of money right there, the ADMA rising up over the VWAP line right there, and it went up, tapped out right here for a little bit, all right, with a red candle, and then really shot up and made the higher high. So they got on top of this right here, and you can see them kind of consolidate right on top of that. See that bearish engulfing or that red candle trying to wipe out the big green one right there. So they got up on top of that and then just consolidated all day up there. All right, after climbing on top of that. Okay, so that was bullish. See them hold those higher grounds. We had a breakout here. It failed. I kind of thought they were going to roll over, but they turned it around and rescued it. And then they had a breakout here, and I thought they were going to kind of roll over. And then they turned around and rescued it. The 10-minute trend, you can see the yellow 3 EMA crosses here, the yellow 3 EMA crosses there, and it just a couple of times right there. So you didn't know whether the price was going to break down or not. I mentioned on top of that, in the pre-market, we got a PPO high. And then if you look at the other high, it was not as high as right here, and yet the price is making a higher high. So you've got a little bit of, let me back out, you got a little bit of bearish divergence. See how this high wound up being higher, but in price it was lower. So you had a little bit of bearish divergence, so we didn't know whether it was going to roll over. Now you see on the 10-minute candles, right through here. They hold on for over 6 candles. That's what I like to see. And then they try to break out. And then that kind of looked like it failed. So then they held on for another 6 candles. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they tried another breakout. And that one kind of didn't go very far. All right. And then it looked like that was going to probably roll over. And they didn't. They still hanging in there for another 6 candles to move it up to, to just kind of melt it up higher. So beautiful, beautiful rip right here. There was no momentum after this. Everything died. You can see the momentum right here. The peak was at 0.07. And then after 0.07, all we did was melt all the way up until, well, right there. Up until right there. And then we started to liven up a little bit. Okay, so you can see it's nothing but melting on the PPO. So there was no momentum at all. It was just like flat. They had that failed breakout, and then that got crushed. Then we got another little try to break out. Didn't get anywhere with that, but nice 10-minute uptrend. As far as the guidance with the downtrend, as you can see, the downtrend never came into play with the 707. All right, because you can see 707 down here below 708. All right, bullish gap up. Notice the bears never filled the gap all day. Bullish clue, stay bullish. All right, and this was SPY in the 10-minute. Okay, so SPY was nice little 10-minute uptrend. I wish it would have kept going, but new all-time high for SPY. I'll bet it's a new all-time high for QQQ as well. Let's look at QQQ, new all-time high for QQQ as well. Back to the SPY. Let's take a look at 10-minute chart. Bullish consolidation on the 10-minute chart coming into the close. 2-hour chart. 2-hour is a 2-hour uptrend. You got daylight between the 3 EMA and the 8 EMA. So daylight right there. So 2-hour uptrend coming into the close, still consolidating now over the prior price action. Okay, bullish there. Daily candle, okay, new all-time high. It's hard not to be bullish in an uptrend when you're making new all-time highs. All right, so that's obviously bullish. We'll pan out. Here's the April origin. Bullish and in an uptrend there for SPY. Let's take a look at weekly chart. Let me get weekly. Bullish and in an uptrend. Monthly chart. Still bullish and in an uptrend right there. Okay, let's take a look at QQQ. All right, on QQQ on the 10-minute chart, we've got bullish 10-minute consolidation up at the highs, up near the all-time highs. On the 2-hour chart, probably got 2-hour uptrend. You can see the 8 is pointed up. All right, you got the candlesticks in the 3 plotting or mapping out on top of the 8 here. Okay, so that's bullish. You got a little daylight there between the 3 EMA and the 8 EMA. So that's bullish and in an uptrend on that 2-hour chart. Okay, obviously 10-minute, 2-hour uptrend right there. Daily candle, new all-time high. Again, doesn't get any better than that. New all-time high for QQQ. So obviously bullish and in an uptrend. Let's take a look at weekly candle. Okay, weekly candle bullish and in an uptrend. Monthly candle bullish and in an uptrend. Let's take a look at IWM. All right, so here's IWM. We'll check it out on the daily time frame. All right, so IWM puts in a higher high and a higher low, closing over a bullish trap, over the rising 17. All right, we'll pan way out here. Here's the origin back here in April. All right, and then we're up here. We made a new all-time here back in late December, early January. New all-time high right there. Pulled back, made a low, higher low right there. Okay, ripped and made another new all-time high about 4 days ago, earlier this week. So IWM, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap, over the rising 17, top of quadrant 4. That's bullish and in an uptrend, IWM. Diamond Dow. Okay, Diamond Dow is an inside day, lower high, higher low, closing inside a bullish trap, over the rising 17, over the all-time high anchored VWAP. Up here at the top of quadrant 4, or near the top of quadrant 4. They got a high here. They made a higher high, so that's bullish because they're up in quadrant 4 anytime you're in the upper third. So that's bullish and in an uptrend for Diamond Dow. Let's take a look at Stinker. All right, Stinker's daily candle's a higher low and a higher high. Nice bullish engulfing candle there. A little bear sandwich. That would be the meat in the middle. All right, which is a red candle, so I'm going to call it a bear sandwich. All right, you guys call it an Oreo, whatever you want to call it, Fig Newton, doesn't matter. For me, the meat in the middle is the bear, because that's the red candle. So that's a bear sandwich for me. Anyways, FNGU, Stinker, higher low, higher high, closing over a bullish trap. You can see the sticks and the 3, plotting up over the rising 8, okay, over a bullish trap. Closing over the rising 17. This pink line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP. Closing over the all-time high anchored VWAP. Knocking on the door of the upper third. Okay, not quite there yet. All right, but you can see, obviously, that would be in the middle of quadrant 3 here. That's going to be neutral. I'm going to pan out. You can see back here in April, that would be the all-time low. This would be the all-time high. This would be the origin of the whole ETN right here. Okay, so all-time low, all-time high, price action neutral. And you can see there's a high right here. And they're making higher highs, so that's an uptrend for FNGU. All right, let's take a look at silver and gold. Silvers. Start off with silver. Silver's got a, let's see what we got here. Okay, it's going to be close. Okay, so the high there is 69.24. The high there is 69.42. So we got ourselves an outside day. Okay, it's a higher high and a lower low, but we closed under a bearish trap, under the flat 17, see the pink line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP. I'm going to pan way out so you can see the origin of this move back here in 2022. This is where it all starts. All right, back here in 2022, and then we just start ramping up and ramping up and ramping up, and then we make our all-time high, all right, at the beginning of the year in 2026. All right, so you can see price action right here for today. Again, outside day, closed under the bearish trap, under the flat 17. Again, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. If you were to separate the low and the high with quad lines, you can see you are over the 50-yard line. So that would be bullish control up here. Okay, problem is the last 5 days, 6 days, they're not moving up. They're kind of just melting off, all right? So I don't know if the bulls are resting, all right? Or are they taking a break? Or they've gone off the trail. I don't know what's going on, but they're not moving up, all right? But they are still in an uptrend. They just have not been moving up. They haven't made a lower low. Okay, so we're still neutral, all right? Because we're not in the upper third. We're not in the lower third. We're right here in the middle of quadrant 3. So that's neutral, all right? But in an uptrend right there. That's silver, okay? Still trying to shape up, but keeps meandering off path, all right? So let's take a look at gold. All right, so here we are with gold. Gold got a, let's see what we got here today. I got to zoom way in. Okay, so that looks like, yeah, it's definitely a higher low. And I got to tell you, I think that's a higher high. Yeah, it looks like a higher high. So higher low, higher high, closing under a bearish trap, under the flat 17, under the all-time high anchored VWAP. That's that pink line. Origin for gold, same area, 2022 right here. All right, runs up here, makes a new all-time high in 2026, beginning of the year. Okay, so we're in the bottom of quadrant 4. That's going to be bullish. All right, we haven't made a lower low. So we're in an uptrend still. All right, but you can see just like silver, in the last 5 days we're not moving up, kind of just resting or melting off here. All right, so gold is again bullish, but in an uptrend that's not moving up right now. Let's take a look at USO. All right, here's USO, and we got a lower high, a lower low. We closed over a bullish trap over the 17 EMA. We're in the middle of quadrant 4. That's going to be bullish. We got a high here. We're making higher highs, so that's bullish and in an uptrend for USO. Let's take a look at UNG. UNG, one of those ones that just never fails to disappoint us, okay? So no surprise here. But if you're bottom picker, I'm just going to say it's looking good if you're a bottom picker. All right, lower high, lower low, closing under a bearish trap. You might like this chart. Lower high, lower low, closing under a bearish trap under the falling 17. I'm going to pan out here. This is just a 12-month high anchored VWAP right there, okay? Nothing's special, okay? 12-month high. You want to see the all-time high? This is ugly, okay? Way up there, okay? Like 8,000, 9,000, okay? So this is just a 12-month high. We didn't set the bar very high at all, and they still can't get over the bar, all right? So here's UNG on the daily chart. This is the all-time low right here, made at the beginning of the year. Okay, you can see we are dangerously close to making new all-time lows. We are at the bottom of quadrant 1. All right, so that means we're bearish. All right, and we're under the falling 17. We're under the the 12-month high anchored VWAP. We're under the midpoint. We're in the lower third. We're bearish and still in a downtrend. So that's UNG. Let's take a look at technicals, T2101. Again, market makes new all-time highs with less participation. Not a good sign. Not a good sign right there. All right, less participation, T2101. You did SPY calls and the AAOI calls today. I bet you did good on the AAOI calls. You should have done well on the SPY calls too. Yes, yeah, I love it. Hey, congrats on both of those. Okay, right here, again, we're losing participation, market breadth. Okay, as we keep continuing to ink out higher highs. Okay, T2101, T2122. What do we got? Okay, so remember yesterday. Okay, we made a lower high, then we ripped a lower low, then we made a lower high again. Nice thing today, we made a higher low, and we made right there, I'm going to call it an equal high. Yesterday, we ended the day in the buy zone. Today, we made a visit in the buyer's chop zone, and another end the day in the buy zone. So I guess I can't complain. We're in the buy zone. All right. The majority of the yellow line is up here, either in the buy zone or the overbought zone. Really can't complain. We did spend a little bit of time today in the buyer's chop zone, just like we did yesterday. If you look at some of the price action on the SPY, I'm going to go off. I'm going to go off plan here just for a second. Let's look at SPY. I just want to show you that the bulls bought the dip. Okay, so this was to see these 3 red candles. Okay, you notice the bulls came in and rescued or bought the dip or rescued the price. And look at here, they came down and the bulls rescued the price action. So the bulls seem to be buying a dip. I don't know what number they got their eye on. I don't know if it's 720 or 750. All right, but we are close to 720 right now. Okay, but beautiful day today on the 15-minute. Move up and hold that higher ground. So they planked up there for, I'm going to call it 4 hours. Okay, and you know what that's like to plank. Any of you guys that exercise or gals, that's not easy to plank for 4 hours straight. So whatever was being sold at them or thrown at them, in other words, anybody that wanted to sell at the all-time highs was being thrown at them up here. So, and the ability to take everything that's thrown at you and still hold that higher ground, that's what I'm talking about. That's hard to plank. Well, that's what I'm saying, because that's incredible for them to do that right there. So there's SPY on the 15, back to T21.22, which we were on. Okay, so we're up here in the buy zone over bot zone. So nice work on the market today. Not liking the lower participation, but do like ending the day up here in the buy zone. So that's a bullish clue for me right there. Making a new all-time high, obviously that's a big bullish clue. T21.23, look at this one. Okay, so we got a bullish gap up, still not filled by the bears after 1, 2, 3 more days. Still not filled by the bears, all right? And you can see them melting higher and higher up here. Not quite taking out the all-time high yet, okay? But obviously dangerously close to taking out the all-time high. Look how much is left, just that little twig up top there. All right, so you can see price yesterday, okay? I don't know if they filled gap yesterday. No, they didn't fill gap yesterday either. Okay, so they didn't fill gap yesterday. They gapped up today. They didn't fill gap today on T21.23. Okay, so they ripped up and they just continued to melt up all day. So there's a high. There's higher highs. So that's in an uptrend. You're up over the rising 200 SMA. That's where you want to be if you're a bull. And you can see this was the prior all-time high, and we made a new higher high right here about 3 or 4 days ago. T21.23 15-minute chart. You can see it doesn't get much better than that. I mean, you saw all that was left of the all-time high. So we're bullish, clearly at top of quadrant 4. We're bullish and in an uptrend on the 15-minute chart. 3-bar chart's going to be pretty close to the same darn thing right there. Okay, you can see here's the April origin. We go up, make a new all-time high for the year of 2025. Pull back, make a higher low. Okay, and then we rip again and make a new all-time high for the beginning of the year in 2026. Pull back, make another higher low. All right, gotta love this. All right, higher low stuff. And then rip and make another new all-time high for the year of 2026. So nice work on T21.23. This is the 3-bar chart. You're over the 200 SMA. That's where you want to be if you're a bull. You're making new all-time highs. Hard not to be bullish. And in an uptrend, when you're making new all-time highs, look at all the green dots. That kind of says it all right there. T21.23 bullish and in an uptrend right there. Let's take a look at Stinker on the 15. Stinker produces today. I don't know if they gap filled or not. Looked like they did. We'll just say they did. All right. Their name is Stinker, so what the heck. All right, so what do we got here? Oh, looks like a higher high because I see a high here. And new rally. I'm going to call it the rally high right there. Made today in the late closing hour for FNGU. Okay, so bullish gap up. Looks like the bears kind of filled the gap. There might be a penny left on the table there. Well, it looks like the bears might not have filled the gap. I still see just a squint of daylight there. So no gap fill for the bears. And big clue, whenever they miss by a penny, big clue. They miss filling the gap by a penny or making a new all-time high by a penny. Big clue right there, okay? So bulls clearly in charge. So they rip all day, make another higher high. So that's bullish and in an uptrend. Okay, you can see we were in a downtrend yesterday. We got a low. We made a lower low. We came back today with a vengeance. And you can see a high. We made higher highs. And then there's a higher high up there. And we even beat that high. Okay, so new rally high for FNGU up over the rising 200 SMA. That's bullish. That's where you want to be if you're a bull. On top of that rising 200 over the pink line, that's the all-time high anchored VWAP. If we slap the quad lines in here, okay, let's put those in. You can see encompassing as much time as I can on the 15. Okay, we are near the top of quadrant 4. That is bullish. All right, and of course we made a new rally high and in an uptrend. This is not the all-time high, okay? Remember, this is just a 15-minute chart. In the daily chart, you see we were neutral and knocking on the door of the upper third on the daily chart. But on the 15, we're up here at the top. That's bullish and in an uptrend on the 15 on the daily candle. That would still be neutral, not quite in the upper third of the quad lines, okay? But knocking on the door, very darn close, and in an uptrend on the daily chart. All right, that's it right there. I will take questions. If anyone has a stock you want me to look at. Yeah, I saw AAOI just ripping today. I actually saw it over here in the gamma profile right here. AAOI. It was at the top and might have got knocked off, but it was up here on the top, and I was looking at that earlier today, right here in the Insider Finance gamma profile right here. So, well, you can see the call wall was 715, and they attacked it all day. All right, they were trying to gear up for it all day long. The call wall. All right, going after that call wall. Let me see what happened. That just changed. It was 715, and take that off. What is that? That is, oh, that's 713. Okay, 714. All right, so call wall was at 715, and then 714 became the new call wall right there. Okay, so that was the magnet, was 715, and now it's 714 right there. Okay, so they just pushed and pushed all day long. All right, you can see them go up and hold the higher ground and continue to push upwards with the price action right there. So take just that day. All right, you can see, let's just include the 27th as well. So this is with both days. You can see relatively, this will be what we'll probably be looking at on Monday, all right, is this big call wall. It'll probably be somewhere around 16 or 17, likely, and there'll probably be a put wall. This put wall is at 700. I imagine this put wall will move up to 705 because they're going to have some overnight action before we get in on Monday. All right, that starts out on Sunday night. That's the Asian session, all right, which is going to start like around 6:30. All right, the Asian session Sunday night, and they'll be able to work through some of this gamma exposure as the Asian session opens up right there. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to take off. I'm going to wish everybody a happy weekend and a safe weekend. And Sharon, I missed you the other day. I apologize for that, but I did see it finally. Lily, support level. Let's go look at it. Okay, we're going to pull up the daily chart, and we're going to go for Lily. All right. Okay, the real support right here is 800. 800 is the real support there. This down here, this is kind of major support right here. Now they can rescue it on major support, but this right here, this is the major support because you can see all of the consolidation right through here. All right, so this 704 is major support. This is the first line of support that I see so far. I'm going to see if I can find one a little bit north of there. All right, so major support 704. All right, and you got a little minor support. All right, at 701 at 800. 800 minor support. Let's see if we can find one a little bit higher. Okay, so anytime I see a valley, that's a headliner for me. And right here, okay, so we got a little bit more support. Okay, you see this peak, and then you've got a peak, and you got a little valley right here, and then of course the valley between two peaks is always a headliner for me. All right, and then you've got another peak that pushes up into there. And you got a candle right here. 655, 657 area. Excuse me, 855, 857 area. Okay, now this is a big number. All right, so it's not going to be like a tight stop like 7, 10, 30. Okay, it's going to be probably an area, so right around that 855 to 860 area right through there. All right, 855 to 860. And you can see it's kind of finding some support here a little bit early, but it's not on the line, but it's finding some support here. That looks spooky, like it's gonna roll over. That's what it looks like to me. You can see multiple pushes down. The bulls come back and rescue it each of these times, but it looks like the bulls have run out of gas, and the bears, like a herd of bears, are just ready to push this lower. So, just saying, maybe. So support right here, 655. Excuse me, 855, 850, 860 area. Okay. And had a bad review on a diet drug. Okay. Yeah, I think all those diet drugs. I actually wanted to get one for myself, but I did a little research. And I see people they lose weight. Let me just say that they do lose weight. And I'm talking about Ozempic would be one of them, and there's a few others that go along with. They're in the same camp as that, but the people do lose weight. But the problem is they have complications afterwards, which kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to have to do the hard work. All right. What are the side effects? I don't know. People come down with they got to get gallbladder, they get gallstones. They have digestion issues in the future. So you should probably Google Lily. Sharon would probably be able to expand on the bad review. Okay. Oh, you heard blindness. I'm definitely not blind. All right, but I do have to squint with my prescription reading glasses, but I never took any of it. Okay, so, and that was my reason, was the side effects that I opted not to do it, and I just said I'm just gonna have to do it the hard way. Okay. All right, so there's that. So did you get a picture of that, Sharon? So you can have a little something to, yeah, you got it. Awesome. Okay. Anybody else got something you want me to look at? If not, I'm going to wish everybody a well weekend. I hope you all made some money today. That was a nice uptrend. Thank you to Robert. Yep, you have a great weekend. It was nice uptrend, so it was something there to trade. If you followed the guidance, should have made money. If you didn't, get with me because I want to help you. Right there, 10-minute uptrend over 710.50, and then we bullied all day with that bull flag. All right, that's it for me, traders. Thank you so much. I will see you all on Monday. All right, everybody have a fantastic weekend.